which is, and my computer went very quiet, so it stopped. It's on digitalization. And we have the first speaker. Actually, I'd like to invite Dr. Chris Stanger from the Institute, the International Center of Insect Physiology and Ecology, to chair this session, please. So is Chris Stanger here, Dr. Chris Stanger?
Yes, Prof, I'm here.
Okay, so would you like to take over and be the chair for this next session, please?
Yeah, thank you so much. It's a pleasure. And greetings, everyone. Once again, welcome to this great event that we are bringing our research together and understanding what we are doing. I will be looking at the session 2, which focuses on digitalization tools for sustainable agri-food systems. And so, because of time constraint, we'll move to our first presenter, who will be is presented on work that has been done by our Agroecology project that is supported by the European Union. And the focus is on the use of digitalization in EcoHub and Living Lab. And this is going to be presented by Dr. Gareth Kitu from JKUAT University in Kenya. Thank you so much. Are you there to take over them, Dr. Gareth?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Dr. Chris. Good morning, good afternoon. I will ask, may I request Mariana to upload the documents for me. Yes, thank you. So I'm talking about digitalization of EcoHub for production and processing of fish. Crickets are edible insects, not the cricket that is played, and spirulina. My name is Gareth Kitu. I am a lecturer and a researcher in the Department of Agricultural and Bioprocessing Engineering of JKUAT and a member of the Eco-Food Consortium. If you can. Yes, so the question that comes to mind when we talk about EcoHub is what it is, especially with respect to fish, spirulina, and edible insects. And crickets are part of edible insects. And we are saying that these are scalable, eco-efficient facility that integrates sustainable production, processing of fish, spirulina, and edible insects, using circular economy principles to maximize on resource use, minimize environmental impact, and generate inclusive economic growth. Digitalization is, in this context, is the integration of smart technologies to ensure that the system runs efficiently and to manage data. So the entire value chain of the EcoHub is integrated into smart technologies from production, processing, and marketing to improve efficiency, traceability, sustainability, and profitability. If we can go to the next slide. And the objectives of digitalization are to improve efficiency and automate through automation through automated feeding, harvesting, and climate control. We also have enabled real-time monitoring and control by use of IoT sensors and remote platforms. We have enhanced decision-making through data analytics, through AI optimization, and which should trigger some action that should be able to enable somebody, either automatically or enable somebody to carry out an action. We have increased traceability and transparency by digital logs and product traceability. We also have as objective support of sustainable goals through optimization of resources, reduction of environmental footprint. And we have expanded market research using digital channels and QR-based systems where we're able to reach our customers and they're able to give us feedback and promotion of scalability, integration through a unified digital system across fish, insect, and the spirulina value chain. We can go to the next slide. Now, this is a system which could look very complicated, but it's simple. It is showing the flow of fish in the fish value chain. We are saying that we start with hatchery, we go to a grow out area, and then we have fish that is mature for harvesting. We are harvesting and taking that fish through some pre-processing activities. Then a simple process like drying, there could be other processing. And then after that, we package and the fish finds itself to the market. And here we are saying that we are integrating sensors, all kinds of sensors, dissolved oxygen, nitrates, in the whole system, so that those sensors are able to tell us or to collect data and tell us when things are moving right, when things are moving wrong. And that data is related to an IoT system. And that information is again related to storage, cloud storage. And we have an AI system which is able to analyze, or algorithms which are able to analyze and tell us whether things are moving right or not, or whether the environment is not the correct one, and suggest corrective action. Next slide. So this is a similar slide for the living labs. The living labs are cages basically in the in the lake, and we have young fish coming in, and there is what is being monitored. Then it comes into the cages, and that is also monitored, and we have information being related to an IoT system and a cloud storage, and there is AI that is also relaying information and communicating back and telling us what's happening. After that, we have the fish harvested, there is drying, there is packaging, and it goes to the customers, and we're able to get customer feedback. So at every stage, there are sensors that are needed, and the sensors that will be installed are shown where we install which sensor. Yes, let's go to the next slide. This is for the insects. The insects, the fish, and the spirulina are in the eco hub. The living lab is a different environment, deep in the lake. And here we are looking at the breeding of insects, and then they are growing, and we are looking at what environment we control: temperature, humidity, feeding, yes, all that. And then the crickets mature. After that, they are harvested. After harvesting, what process do they go through? For us to know that they are ready for harvesting, what are we looking at? Biomass, density, and so we have all those sensors which come into play to ensure that we are able to tell when these crickets or the insects are ready for harvesting. Then after that, we are saying that we have a drying chamber. In the drying chamber, we are looking at the drying environment, relative humidity, which should be maintained fairly low, temperatures, not very high, but temperatures that should be able to ensure that drying takes place. And then moisture content. So we are looking at the reduction in moisture for the crickets. So we have sensors again that should be able to guide us and tell us what's happening. And then after that, we go to packaging. So basically that is the value chain, and we are saying that there are sensors that are relaying information to an IoT, and that IoT is linked to cloud storage, and the cloud storage is linked to an artificial intelligence, and there is a feedback mechanism where we can get information as to what is happening. Next slide. Yes, so there are various components of the Eco Hub. We are saying that we have a fish production unit, which is basically being converted into a smart aquaculture system for fish growing. It could be a RAS or the other system. Cricket production units, which is basically automated rearing and monitoring of the crickets as they grow. There is spirulina production units, which is digitally controlled cultivation of this product. And then we are saying that each of these is harvested, and after it is harvested, there is the process of the post-harvest process through which they go through are all taken through censored places or systems that have sensors, which will be able to monitor what's happening. And then there's the processing units, where we are saying that we could be filleting, packaging, drying, grinding, and packaging. And for spirulina, we are talking of drying, powdering, and packaging. Next slide, please. Yes, and we are saying that in digitalization, we are looking at water quality, where we're using water, especially in spirulina and fish. Here we are looking at the various aspects that would encourage growth: pH, temperature, oxygen, carbon dioxide, nitrates, all those. And we are saying, so we have sensors that are supposed to be telling us what's happening with the content, the right environment. There is smart feeding systems based on fish behavior, and then data collection for the growth rates. We need to know how the fish is growing, and we need to know how they are mature. So, or when they are mature, and therefore there should be a way of telling us that this is when the fish is mature and ready for harvesting. Smart harvesting, drying, batching, and packaging systems, and QR coding or barcoding for packaging. And then we are saying that there should be an artificial intelligence algorithms that are monitoring what's happening in the system. The same happens in the cricket production system. We are talking of controlled environment. Here we are looking at temperature, humidity, and of course, feeding and harvesting systems. We are looking at monitoring of cricket growth and their health. We need to see how active they are. If they cease being active, then it means that there's a problem. The same thing with fish. Smart harvesting, drying, batching, and packaging systems, and of course, QR coding. This is similar to the fish, and AI monitoring and optimization algorithms. Again, similar to what's happening in the fish value chain. Next slide. Yes, the same thing is happening for spirulina. Here we are talking about real-time monitoring of water quality and nutrients level in the spirulina production system. And then, of course, light is also an issue in spirulina production. So again, we're also monitoring that. Automated harvesting and drying systems, data analysis for optimal growth conditions. Of course, that should come from before the harvesting, and then smart harvesting, drying, batching, packaging, and then the QR coding or barcoding once you harvest and package. And of course, the system should be connected to an AI monitoring and optimization algorithm. Yes, next slide. So we are saying that in a nutshell that digitization turns an eco hub into a smart, investable system that supports climate smart food secure and local economy, food security and local economies. And this is the direction to go. The issue of power is still there. The issue of how much water to use, the issue of how much energy to use, all those should be controlled through digitalization. Next slide. And this work is funded by EU Horizon and UK grants, and we gratefully acknowledge them. I think that's what I had for this session. Thank you. Thank you for attention. Thank you, Chris. I think that's what I had.
Thank you so much, Prof, for that great presentation. I think we'll move to the second presenter, who will still come from the Agroecology project. And that's Lawrence. He will be presenting on AI and IoTs in processing of food and feed, specifically laying a lot of emphasis on dryers. And it's actually within the project, the Sparky, which is located in Uganda. So, Lawrence, are you there with us?
Hello. Good morning, good afternoon, everyone, wherever you are. My name is Lawrence from Sparky. My background is on AI and machine learning from Sparky Social Enterprise Limited. And today I'll be making a presentation on how best we can use technology in food processing. I think I can share my screen. Just a moment.
Do you want Mariana to help?
Here we go.
Oh, you go.
All right. Let me turn it into.
It's right at the top.
I cannot see it.
Right, top left.
Top left.
Yeah.
Oh, there we go.
Mhm.
All right. So a lot has been said about the production, and now is a critical time for us to look at what has been produced. How can we take care of? How can we preserve it? How can we turn what we have produced into another form of product? And that is where the preservation comes in. So post-harvest loss has been one of the major challenge for smallholder farmers and agripreneurs. And drying is one of the key preservation means for the fish product that is being produced, the spirulina, the crickets, and also the black soldier flies. And here we're looking at how can we integrate AI and IoT into our different dryers so that we are able to improve on the product quality and also the consistent. But one of our focus in all building this technology is, can we look at the affordability, sustainability, and the real-time decision support? And this is where the AI and IoT comes in. And one of the case scenario we're looking at is the Sparky solar dehydrator. And here is a system that we have built. It's a low tech, high tech system that anyone can use anywhere, and it doesn't require quite a lot of high end technology. But as long as the sun shines in your community, you're able to use the Spark solar dryer, and this is what it comes with. The system is fully solar powered. It uses the energy, the direct energy from the sunlight, And also it uses the energy from the solar panels, where during the day when the sun energy is out there, it's able to trap it inside the dryer and convert it into heat, which is able to dehydrate your food produce. And in the scenario where the sun energy is not available, the solar panels that you see there has been collecting the solar energy and storing them in the battery, which is used at night, which is converted into electrical energy at night, and it powers the PTC heaters that we have in the dryer. That's able to extend the drying time at night until when you have your produce dried within the stipulated time period. Now, what makes the Sparky dryer a smart one? We have a couple of sensors, but one of the major one is the DHT, the digital humidity and the temperature sensors that we use in the dryer to monitor the humidity, to monitor the temperature, and these are the key parameters. But of course, before you put anything in the dryer, you ensure that you measure the weight so that we know what is the weight before drying and then what will be the weight after dehydrating. So in the dryer, we'll constantly monitor the temperature and the humidity at the start of the drying, and also when the drying is done. So we'll be collecting this data, and this data help us to train our machine learning algorithm, which is able to tell us that the drying is going on well, or there's something wrong with the temperature inside, and also able to automate. For instance, when we are drying fish, we need to know that the drying temperature should range between 40 to 50 degrees Celsius, so that we can dry it slowly, and also it helps us to maintain the nutrients within the fish. So with that, we are able to set our algorithm to know that the drying temperature that we need is this. So when the temperature exceeds that certain stipulated temperature that we have set and the humidity, the fans automatically turns on to regulate this temperature, ensure that everything is within the set parameters. And the same thing with the humidity. With that, we are able to track how the drying is being performed, how much heat is being generated in the dryer, and how much humidity is being expelled out at what time during the day the temperature is higher, what time during day when the humidity, or what time when you've put in your produce is the humidity high or is the temperature. So we're able to collect that data and store it into our cloud. And with our advanced machine learning algorithm, we are able to analyze those data and look at how best we can optimize the drying. And what makes it interesting and makes it a smart one is we're using the GSM module, whereby when you put your produce in the dryer, you're able to get notifications in your phone that we are almost closer to having this food produce dried. So it helps you to know when to turn the system off to conserve energy, and also when to know when to take an action. And this is one of the dryer that we are going to be using in some of the eco hubs and the living labs. And another system that we are also going to be looking at is the multipurpose dryer, which is developed by Inotech, and our partners Albert and Matthias are here. So this system also uses solar energy, and some of the parameters that we are looking at is the temperature. This is quite more complex than the Sparky dryer, and Albert and Matthias will talk more about it during the discussions. So some of the parameters that we are looking at is the temperature, the relative humidities, which are controlled automatically, and also some of the things, the electrical and the mechanical system. These are some of other systems that will also be looking at, that consists of the fans, the heat pumps, and the solar radiations. And in this dryer also, we're looking at the weight of the product. It has a system that, you first weigh the product before you put it in, so that we know what is the temperature before dehydration and then what is the temperature after the dehydration. And mostly what we control in this dryer is the humidity, the temperature, and the moisture contents. And all this happens with the use of the fans and the heat which is pumped inside the dryer. So this is how the IoT and AI is used in this dryer. Now, so here we have the power fans, and then we have the power heat. So the fans feed in the heat inside the dryer, and also they help in to regulate the temperature inside. Now, this system comprises of sensors that monitors the relative humidity, and then sensors that monitors the velocity of the air inside the dryer. And also we have the temperature sensors that still monitor how much heat and how much air that we need inside the dryer. Now, what happened is we have a data acquisition system where all the data, all the control signal from the temperature, from the heat, from the fan, from the relative humidity goes into this PLC. This is our control system here. And then this data is later processed, and now it's given, it's sent to the cloud server, or to the database, or to the Synology Nudge, or to the you can access it via Wi-Fi, or can use also a GSM to access the same data. And now you're able to know how much you want to do with this data, because with this data you can analyze it and know the drying pattern of each and every agricultural produce that you want to dry, and you can know how long it takes. You can know the conditions that you need to subject such agricultural product into. And this takes us to one of the main reasons why do this drying data really matter. So number one is it helps us to understand the temperature, humidity, and their impact on the nutritional value and the shelf life. And number two is these IoT sensors provide us with real-time data on the drying performances. And the models help us to optimize the drying time, reduce spoilage, and also improve on the energy use. And more so, this data enables standardization for the fish feeds, the insect protein, and the nutrient-rich food product. And more so, it helps us to support the traceability, the quality assurance, and compliance for scaling the markets. All these digital tools enables farmers to make a smarter and decision to reduce these losses, so that we can farm smartly and also ensure that whatever we are producing doesn't have a huge effect on the environment. I would love to end my presentation by saying thank you for your attention, and much appreciation to the European Union and the UK Research and the Innovation for providing the funding to ensure that this research is going on quite well. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Lawrence, for that brilliant presentation, and bringing in the role of AI and IoT in food processing and feed production. I think we'll move to our next presenter. That will be giving a presentation on the potential of digitalization to enable agroecology. That is Professor Carl from Harper Adams University in the UK.
Chris,
thank you so much.
If you allow me, Chris.
Yes.
Just to announce that the asked question about the requirement of the energy of the IBRS was already calculated in the chat box.
Yeah, I thought we could address that in the round table where we have more time.
Yes, just announce that it's already in the chat box now.
Thank you so much. Yeah, we've taken note of that. Thank you so much, Prof, for picking that up.
Thank you very much. Yes.
Okay, thank you so much. So we'll move to our next presenter from the Digitalization for Agroecology project, EU project. Thank you. Professor
Thank
Carl?
you. And yeah. Good evening, everyone, or good morning, wherever you may be. So I assume you can hear me. If you cannot, please do let me know. But I'll make a start. So hello, my name is Carl Berendt. I'm from Harper Adams University in the UK, and I've led a particular work package in the D4 Ag-Ecol project that Dr. Maya Ulrich presented and discussed a little bit earlier. And what I'm going to present here is a very quick introduction to some of the work that we've done about the potential of digitalisation to enable agroecology, and in particular, how those technologies align with the elements of agroecology, but also to give you a bit of an insight into the economics of digitalisation for agroecology. Okay. So, as I just mentioned, digitalisation and agroecology really go hand in hand, because we're all about the sustainable agriculture paradigm in terms of we're looking to improve environmental, economic and social outcomes and align them with principles under sustainable agriculture. Our work has heavily used the 10 elements of agroecology produced by the FAO, which have been mentioned a couple of times today. And digitalisation, in a sense, from where we're coming from, is very much about precision agriculture. It's about doing things more efficiently and connecting farmers to consumers, considering threats regarding diet, but there are threats regarding data privacy, cultural values, and accessibility as well. So the current research that we actually undertook is how can digital technologies enable agroecology? Andreas mentioned earlier our workshops that we held in all the different countries, and we held combinations of technology workshops, so digital tool scoping workshops, as well as national policy workshops. And if you're interested in finding more about those outcomes from particular workshops, I suggest you head to our website where they are all detailed. So just to give you a bit of introduction to the technologies that we were looking at around Europe. And so at Harper Adams University on the left-hand side here, and I don't think you can see my mouse if I move it, we looked at virtual fencing as well as strip intercropping using small autonomous machines. As we go around, UCPH used drones to map thistles. ATB looked at both rumen boluses as well as nitrogen sensors. Zauf in Germany also looked at landscape monitoring of environmental assets. Luke in Finland, looked at green manuring. LFL in southern Germany and Bavaria looked at the use of the FD20 robots for autonomous weeding and seeding activities in arable systems. AUA in Greece looked at spraying using drones, which was in a vineyard application. And then PESEL, UNAC and DLG used different technologies to look at forest cover, monitor soil moisture, or alternative energy sources. One of the key outcomes from the digital tool scoping workshops, which involved a lot of stakeholder engagement, was to look at how these different digital tools achieved different elements of agroecology. And so what you can see here in this matrix is one, the mean impact. So the darker the green, the higher the mean impact on the elements of agroecology. But also the larger the circle means the greater level of confidence. And so you can, when you look at the different technologies where the pictures line up under the columns, or picture is above the column, you can see the technologies differ greatly in how they achieve different elements of agroecology based on our stakeholder feedback and our stakeholder discussions. But there is one common thread that comes across here, and I mentioned before precision agriculture, is that efficiency was very much a core theme running across all of these technologies in how they enabled agroecology to be achieved, or that element of agroecology to be achieved. Andreas also mentioned the ADOPT program, which we used. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, but two key outcomes that we looked at was time to peak adoption and peak adoption level, and in particular looking at what drove those two indicators for each individual technology coming out of the digital tool scoping workshops. And this culminated in a farm level assessment of agroecology relevant digitalization technologies. And for each of the technologies that we've assessed, we've produced these wonderful fact sheets that describe all the potential effects on agroecology, as well as an assessment of their performance and opportunities and challenges. And if you're interested in seeing those insights for any of the technologies, I really do recommend you head to our website. Now, just to give you a very quick overview of something that we think is quite unique about the project, in that we looked at the economic feasibility of digitalisation for agroecology. And economics is important as much as farmers and farmers in the UK in particular, and I'm just drawing on that as an example, are very interested in agroecology and they're very interested in environmental preservation. The reality is, under labour shortages, a declining farm profitability, and a declining public expenditure on subsidies, particularly in the UK, the need for whatever is adopted to be economic and be economically efficient is mandatory. And one way to think about it is economic gravity. The reality is that you just can't get away from it. And that applies to many different scales of farming. So for particular technologies we did look at in quite a bit of detail was the farm droid, the aerial pesticide spraying in Greek vineyards, and then also the hands-free hectare and no fence. And they're the two that I will spend a little bit of time talking about. And how we assessed these was through a multi-objective linear programming approach, using all the knowledge that we could derive from the living labs, from our stakeholders, and then also from the researchers and the industry people involved with these technologies. These are all very high TRL technologies that we looked at in their ability to enable agroecology. So when I'm talking about hands-free hectare and I'm talking about small autonomous machines, you can see the video here of what I'm talking about. And what we're talking about is small-scale tractors working autonomously without anyone in the field. And the footage you're seeing is from the first cereal crop grown in 2017, which was the hands-free hectare, where no one stepped into the field. The entire crop was autonomously grown, from soil sampling, crop monitoring, right through to sowing, harvesting and spraying, as you can see. On the bottom left-hand side is how we've used this technology in strip cropping applications. And here we're talking about having 2-metre strips of different rotations. So we're talking about 3 to 4 different types of crops, and in particular also a pasture lay in between those crops and being managed autonomously. And when we think about, well, okay, how does this small autonomous machines compare to conventional farming? And on a whole field scale, so whole field sole cropping, what we see is the autonomous machines are very good at reducing farm operator and casual labour inputs quite substantially, as you can see from like a 23 to 29% reduction. We also see that gross returns don't really change all that much, so there's not a lot happening there in terms of yield effects. But after fixed costs, we see a significant increase in the profitability of the small autonomous machines against wholesale cropping large conventional equipment. And the reason being is that the large conventional equipment is nearly twice the asset value of the small machines. And that enables the winter wheat production costs to decline significantly. And it also enables the need not to have large machines and large fields, which also provides environmental benefits. When we think about the small autonomous machines against conventional strip cropping, here again we see massive reductions in labour inputs. We also see significant gross return inputs because we're getting edge effects because of the small 2 metre strip cropping, which is, it is a major principle of agroecology. We're also seeing increase in profits again due to fixed costs, and part of that is labour savings as well as the cost of the equipment. And the small autonomous machines, because they're able to work 22 hours per day and don't need a break overnight, it makes a big difference. So virtual fencing, the last technology that I'll just quickly mention. Just to give you an idea of what virtual fencing is, when we think about moving animals around to optimise grazing systems, 8,000 years ago, we pretty well started with just moving animals around with a shepherd. Then obviously we've progressed through different types of barriers where the animals could be left alone and without human intervention. And the latest method is virtual fencing. And the earlier attempts at virtual fencing, you can see, are not very streamlined, the image there from Anderson 2007, but they all very much rely on GPS location and tracking the animal's movement around a digital grazing area. And as the animal approaches the boundary, they get an auditory sense, auditory warning, and they get that 3 times prior to getting an electric shock. Which that electric shock is actually less than an electric fence, just out of curiosity. And there are many commercial systems currently available on the market, and the one that we used in our Harper Adams living lab was the no fence technology. So we looked at this in 2 settings. So one was an intensive beef finishing system where there was an intensive rotational grazing system, much like you would see on a dairy farm. And when we compared the no fence technology, the virtual fencing technology, with set stocking, so in other words, the animals just get the entire field without any movement, we are actually worse off in terms of labour inputs. But when we compare it to rotational grazing using traditional electric fencing, we're better off. And that largely comes through the very streamlined applications that come with the virtual fencing technology. In terms of gross return, here again we've seen higher gross returns from the virtual fencing technology. In comparison to set stocking system, we see that because we actually have higher beef production off the same resources. So this is somewhat intensification, which is a great outcome. And we see a very small increase against rotational grazing, mainly because of labour and electricity savings. But the problem with the virtual fencing technology is, after fixed costs, is that for both set stocking and rotational grazing, we're much worse off. And the main predominantly reason for this is the cost of the virtual fencing equipment. At £295 per collar for the virtual fencing system, plus subscriptions and battery charges and so forth, the cost of the technology is too high for such an intensive finishing system. Another scenario we looked at was for conservation grazing, and this is where we used virtual fencing to exclude animals from 10% of a landscape that we wanted to preserve. And the situation in the UK is that you can actually get a payment for those parts of the landscape that you protect. But unfortunately, we're challenged with exactly the same things the intensive system was challenged with, and that is the cost of the virtual fencing. And in this particular case, the extra payments from protecting parts of the landscape did not outweigh the cost of virtual fencing. So I suppose in summation, different technologies have certainly different outcomes, both economically and also ecologically. And we need to think about the whole system rather than just parts of the system when it comes to farmers adopting these technologies to enable agroecology. So with that, I'll say thank you, and I do encourage you to head over to our website if you're interested in seeing much greater detail about our assessments of all the different technologies and how they may enable agroecology. So thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Professor Carl. That was a very innovative kind of presentation, and I suppose that we have learned a lot. My name is Cynthia Mdalungu. I am standing in for Dr. Tanga. Let me just put on my camera. Sorry.
Thank you, Cynthia.
Okay, yeah. I was saying that my name is Cynthia Mdalungu and I'm standing in for Dr. Tanga because he has gone to another meeting. And at this juncture, I would like to invite our next speaker, who is Dr. Michael Shearman from ATB Potsdam. And he will be talking to us about the smart monitoring tools for sustainable agriculture in Africa. So welcome, Dr. Michael.
Yes, thank you for inviting me here. I'm actually from a different project. I'm from the Sustain Africa project.
Yeah.
Let me share the screen. I hope it is working. Can you see something?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, we can see. Just put it in the slide mode.
Okay. So basically, the Sustain Africa project aims a bit more towards helping small businesses or smallholder farmers in order to improve their food production. And in a more sustainable and also in a resilient way. And I'm actually here presenting more our work in work package 2 of this rather large project, which involves a lot of countries, as you can see, a lot of partners in Europe, but also particularly partners in Africa from Ghana, Burkina Faso, Niger, Egypt, and Tunisia. And I'm from Work Package 2 and leading here the work for smart monitoring tools. And I want to show here in this small presentation some results we had, and particularly regarding remote sensing, where we investigated drones and drone use in some of the countries. Then also we developed we are developing a small smart tool for smartphones for insect recognition. And I will end the presentation towards a bit regarding drought modeling from remote sensing data. So regarding the remote sensing with drones or UAV, unoccupied area vehicles, we investigated the use with small business partners, in particular in Ghana and Tunisia. We wanted actually also include the other countries as well, but the problems to use drones are so difficult in some of the countries, especially because the military is not allowing us to use the drones. And even in Tunisia, we had to restrict to one company only, to a state-owned company, in order to make our flight campaigns over the field experiments. And we use here different platforms that especially we aim for a specific platform that includes multispectral camera as well as an RGB camera for high resolution monitoring. But we actually wanted to use the Altum camera, the multispectral camera in both of the countries, which allows us also to include a thermal band. But the easiest way for drone use was actually for us in Ghana, where we worked together with the Dex Africa company. And here, for example, are some of the aerial images we could produce with the drone use. As you need to see that those pictures are taken from specific flight campaigns. You are flying over the ground over an area and making a lot of aerial images which are overlapping, and then you can produce via photogrammetry coherent aerial images which you can load, for example, into any GIS system. But also these images you can see here, which are depicting some of the pineapple fields, organic and also from conventional use, are actually made from like 500 singular images. So there's a lot of processing always involved in order to get those aerial images. But you can see a lot in those images, especially, for example, the field and individual pineapples even, but also for which is interesting for maybe more ecological use, the involvement of other vegetation throughout the region. However, we focused our campaigns specifically in Ghana on the mango side, mango orchard, where we made a very specific flight campaign. What is good with drones is, for example, that when you just simply change the altitude, you can get much more details. And for example, here you see a flight campaign undertaking in 50 meters height altitude, and we could really single out the singular mango trees. Due to the multispectral camera we used here, we get a lot of information about it, and we can calculate, for example, specific vegetation indices, which allows us to relate, for example, to vitality. So the idea, which is maybe better here shown for the Tunisia campaign, is always also to generate kind of calibration models to interesting tree parameters or plant parameters. So these flight campaigns were all connected with a lot of ground-based reference sampling, preferable via sensors on the living leaves, for example, using the spot sensor for chlorophyll activities or the lycos sensor in order to get the leaf structure, the leaf area index, but also kind of tree height and other like nitrogen from laboratory were sampled as well. So the idea is a bit using those drone data in connection with those tree parameter analysis in order to get calibration models, which help us then to understand the vitality of the plants over the orchard in a very high resolution. Which helps in a lot of way for the farm management. Here you see for first results, for example, for calibration models we found in the Tunisian campaign in olive trees, where we have a lot of especially good results for the tree structural parameters and less good for chlorophyll activities. But that was mainly due to the problem that we only used an RGB camera here because of the restricted use. We could only work together with one company in Tunisia. So but we are upcoming also with new models for the mango site in Ghana in the next weeks. So it is interesting to follow here. up. And another approach we are following in this work package is more bottom-up approach for developing a smart tool, the Insectamon tool, which where we analyze so-called sticky traps. Yellow sticky traps are used for identifying or counting insects in the field. It's basically the color is drawing in insects, and they will then be attached by a line to this trap, and you can count them and see if, for example, pest management is necessary. And the idea was to analyze those sticky traps with an AI model in order to make a smart approach that you can just take a photograph from the sticky traps via a smartphone, and then it will be counted, and also the insect will be identified. So we collected a lot of data in multiple countries from different field experiments, especially in olive and in mango. And later we included also millet and maize. And yeah, this was particularly done with partners in Africa, where we attached yellow sticky traps within the field, within the trees, for example. And then the images were taken. And then we trained an AI model, specifically where are the blobs model, which helps us to be very fast and enables us also to implement it on the smartphone, because it's just for particularly focusing on counting and not so much in localizing the objects within the image. So because we are mostly interested in the insect counts, this was a model more to go, because we could then implement it in an Android app, which is using a relatively light version of the model to run it relatively smoothly, even offline, directly from the smartphone. So we don't need a server to run the model, but the model is actually completely installed then later on the smartphone. And we got first reasonable results despite rather limited number of images we could use for training. And the last approach we are focusing a bit is on drought risk prediction for location in Africa. Here we specifically focused first on the Tamalo orchard in Ghana again, where we had a lot of good URV data as well. But actually the main data which is going into the model are Landsat thermal data, which is satellite image data. And we use historical rainfall data. And the idea is to train a model that can analyze in the future agricultural drought events through using the TVDI. The TVDI is a specific index that can be generated via Landsat imagery using the NDVI, which is a vegetation index, in connection with the land surface temperature, because the Landsat sensor has also a temperature sensor installed. And we calculated a specific AI model by inputting historical rainfall data and trained specifically it on the TVDI data in order to get a model that can be used to predict the TVDI also into the future, using then specific climate scenarios, SSP scenarios, which enables then to look specifically for this site if agricultural drought events might come in place over the time, depending on the specific climate scenario chosen. And for this site, for example, there was a lot of water stress events or drought events predicted over the next years, up to 2050, because everything over the red line is actually in risk of a year with drought. So that's for short from my side. Thank you for your attention. Maybe you have some questions right away, otherwise maybe later. So
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Michael, for giving us an overview of your brilliant research that you're carrying out.
yeah,
I don't know whether we have questions, but I think we can leave that at the end so that we go to the discussion section. In the discussion section, just as Lawrence talked about the AI and IoTs, I would like to invite Dr. Albert and Dr. Matthias from Innotech to take us through what they can say about this. Welcome, Albert and Matthias.
Thank you very much. Maybe I share my slides. Given the advanced time, we maybe will focus only on 1 or 2 points that Lawrence and Professor Gareth have already mentioned, and which we want maybe a bit elaborate on.
Please go ahead.
Yes. So, I guess, do you see my screen?
Not yet.
Okay. Let me. So now you should see it.
Yes, please put it in the. Okay, it's okay now. Thank you.
Okay. So as Lawrence already presented you, we are planning on setting up a kind of a self-hosted server and cloud type. And on this slide, I want to give you a short overview over how we want to collect the data and on how the measuring and data acquisition is planned. So as Lawrence already mentioned, we have a lot of sensor data in our dryers, let alone to store and to analyze, and therefore we set up a small IT system that contains a database on which the data can be stored, and also an IT system which enables all partners, all authorized partners to access the data and use it as they wish. And the aim was that we are not depending on any external service, and can provide the highest level on data security and data privacy for our project, so that we have it in our hands, who can access the data. And the system is not only designed for the data of our dryers, but it is also accessible for all the other data that is collected and produced in the eco hubs. And as we heard before, there are a lot of data arising from all aspects of the eco hubs, from the fish ponds, the spirulina ponds, the cricket production. And our goal is to give a home for all data, to collect it all in a central place, and then be able to use our AI algorithms with the data, or analyze the data in other ways and store it for the time being. Another point that we maybe want to emphasize a bit on is what also Lawrence and Gareth mentioned a bit, is that there is a lot of parameters in the overall process of food processing, and post-harvest processes. So besides the process as is, let's say the drying process, there are other fields of parameter that interact with each other and have strong influences on the process of other fields of parameters. So, for example, if we want to define our finished product, let's in our case it's fish, but let's say it's some fruit that we want to have a specific moisture content as in the finished product, or a specific ingredients like a vitamin level or something. We have a lot of parameters influencing that. For example, the raw material has a high impact on that. So if we want a finished product with a high vitamin level, we cannot use a raw product that doesn't contain the levels we want. And also the process has an influence on the finished product, as the vitamin could be degrade on too high temperatures, for example. And other fields that have high influences on the process and on the product is the energy supply. So in this project, we are using a lot of solar power. So we have not a constant supply on solar energy, as at the night we don't have the solar power. So we have to think of the influences of that. We have to store the energy, as Lawrence described it in the Sparky dryer, with batteries to store electric energy, or in the case of the multi-purpose dryer, we store the energy as heat in heat tanks. So there are also parameters that are highly influencing the process and finished product, and the market, which we marked in yellow here, that as we have to calculate if it's monetary efficient to use which energy for the process. So is it worth it economically to use solar power, as we could we have to do higher investments, but have a cheaper energy over time. So it's also influencing the market in a way. And when we are looking at the drying process as is, also if we only focus on the drying process, we have a lot of influence. We can directly see the influences from the other fields of parameters. We see here in the first row, we see the parameters that we actually have an leverage on, that we actually can influence. It's the heat that we can control by our heater, by pumping hot water through the heat exchanger. We can control the power of the fan, and with that the airflow, and we can control how the air is flowing through the dryer. So we can use fresh air or recirculate it. These are the things we can actually put our hands on. And with these three parameters, we can influence the temperature in the heater, the moisture in the heater, and the volume flow of air that we put through the heater. But that's actually just a intermediate layer of parameters, as we want actually control the product parameters that we are achieving in our process. And the moisture at the end, the color of the product, and the ingredients of the product, as well as the process parameters like the yields of the drying process, or the cost of the drying process for energy, for example, and the duration. How long does the process, the drying need? And after all, what we want to control is the profit we can make from our product. And we see in all these parameters we have influences from other fields of parameters, like the heating power and the fan power. We need a constant energy supply, and we need to know the energy supply. The raw material influences the product parameters of the finished product, and the market influences the profit we can make at the end of the day. And what we want to show with this these little images is that there are highly complex interactions in between a lot of parameters, and this is where the AI applications can come in and help us to predict how we can influence the parameters we are interested in, and to predict the interactions, and to give us advice how we can how we can optimize our process. Maybe this gives a little insight in how we are planning to use AI, and how we are thinking about the process in a maybe a bit more holistic, wider range. And I would invite Albert if you have something to add. Otherwise, I would give the word back.
Okay, thank you, Matthias, for the nice presentation. I don't know whether we have questions to Matthias and all those who presented under this session too. If any burning question, then I would allow one or two. But if we do not have any questions, then I would like to take the mic back to Professor Anthony. Thank you.
Thank you, Cynthia. So this brings us